Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, the place for internet technology professionals whose work-life balance plan has imploded. We are here to provide solutions that will help the IT pro live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hi, this is Joanne Victoria, and welcome to another episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Our guest today is John Polis, Dr. John Polis. Dr. Polis attended Dayton Bible College and graduated with a BA in Biblical Studies in 1980, at which time he became a pastor of a Pentecostal church in West Virginia. John has been a TV and radio host for more than 30 years and author of 11 books, now translated into 6 languages. One of his books that we like to talk about is Victorious: How to Face, Fight, and Finish Your Battles. Victorious is available on Dr. Polis's website, which is johnpolis.com, and Amazon as well. Thank you for Amazon. We appreciate all their help. So today, Dr. Polis is going to be talking about leadership and specifically servant leadership, which I agree with, and so does Dr. Polis. So here we go. Welcome to the show, Dr. Polis, and help our listeners understand what servant leadership is all about.
Well, thank you, ma'am. It's great to be with you today. And I would like to begin by suggesting that servant leadership is really about influencing people's lives. The servant leader exists for the followers. It's kind of like a father that exists for the family. The children don't exist for the parents. It's the other way around. And that's what the way we view leadership, whether it's in the secular or in the church world, is that leadership really exists for their people. And that's what servant leadership is all about. One of my favorite authors is a guy named John Maxwell. Many of your listeners may know who he is, but John Maxwell defines leadership as influence. And I find the most influential leaders are those who serve their people with a desire to help their people become the best people they could be, achieve the most in life. In other words, we don't use people for our corporate goals or for our personal dreams. We exist to help people be their best and do their best in life. That's servant leadership. And whatever you help others do, eventually someone's going to help you do. So serving is the bottom line. John Maxwell, in one of his books, one of my favorites, which is called Developing the Leader Within You, he gives us the 5 levels of leadership. And of course, he's defining leadership as influence. And the servant leader has the most influence. And he gives us these 5 levels of leadership that we have to define with every person. What level of leadership or how much influence do we have with that person's life? Because as our influence grows, our ability to lead other people grows. And John Maxwell says, if you think you're a leader and no one's following you, you're only out taking a walk. So he begins with number 1, position. There are 5 levels of leadership that are the means of influencing people. The first one is positional. That is, we lead because we have the right to lead. We have the position. And this is the lowest level of influence we have with people. People follow us, in other words, because they have to. And if we don't move off of that first level of leadership, which is positional, I'm the boss, it becomes dictatorial, it can become autocratic. And certainly in today's world, with the millennial generation and the culture that we live in, people do not respond to an autocratic type of leadership, a dictatorial type of leader that just says, hey, do what I tell you to do because I'm the boss. That is the lowest level of influence or leadership that we have with people. These people have subordinates, but they don't have team members. And there's a big difference. They rely on rules and regulations and policies and organizational charts to control people. So they're only going to have people that follow them within the stated boundaries of their authority. So we need to move as leaders ourselves from that lowest level of influence with people, which is the position. And we move to the second level of influence that we have with people, which is permission. This is based on relationship now. People follow us because they want to. I know as a pastor of a church and leading churches and organizations, Christian organizations for many years, I always observe when I have moved with a person in terms of influence from position to permission. People will say they'll join our organization, and they follow me because they know I'm the leader. I'm the guy in charge. So, hey, whatever you say, that's what we're going to do. But I also know that really those people haven't bought into me. They haven't given me permission yet. Mm-hmm. They're following because they have to. And I can always see when that level of influence goes to the next level with this person, and they have now begun to follow me because they want to. So now we're getting into the importance of relationship with people. And this is servant leadership. When you get to that level, people start doing more than they do when they simply comply with orders. They're really actually starting to follow you. They're buying into who you are and what you want to do, what your vision is. So we're moving from position to permission, which is where we really start having a relationship with people and our influence grows. The third level, according to John Maxwell, is production. And this is about results. Now here people begin to follow us because of what we have done for the organization. And this is really, really significant here. Many times people will come into our organization, and they're maybe leaders themselves, maybe they're business people, maybe they're a principal of a school, or they have some management position or leadership position, and they'll look around our organization and they'll see what we've accomplished, and they'll see my name attached to that as the president, the founder, whatever, and they'll see the results of our efforts over the last 35, 40 years. And they immediately move to that level of influence with me because they recognize and they can appreciate results. And typically, other leaders are the people who appreciate results. People who haven't yet accomplished much in life, they haven't yet learned to appreciate results. But a person that comes into your organization and looks around and sees what you've accomplished, and they are a person of accomplishment themselves, they'll immediately give you that level of influence because they recognize you must know what you're doing. You must have paid the price to get where you are, and they understand that process. And so they will immediately begin to give you a greater level of influence than even people on the position or the permission level. So this is very, very important that we understand the level of leadership. I know as people come into my organization, they join our church or they join our network of churches, and they immediately assess where we are. Leaders, they come in, they assess where you are, and they're ready to move with you. They're ready to pay a bigger price. They're ready to invest more because you have a greater level of influence. That's how we lead people, through influence. These people are willing to give more of their time immediately. You don't have to wait for them to grow through the permission and the position and the permission level. They buy in at a higher level.
Yeah, that was one of my questions, that how can we skip positional and permissions and get to production quicker?
You have to have results.
Yes.
and the people that come into your organization have to appreciate results and know the value and what it costs to get there. And they immediately give you that level of influence.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Then we move to level 4. Level 4 is called people development. And as a pastor, this is what I would call making disciples. My greatest model of leadership is, of course, Jesus Christ himself, and how he developed people and made disciples and enabled them to get to such a place in their life that he could go away and leave them fully in charge, and they could continue to do everything that he began to do, even in the way he did it, and get the same results. And of course, that's why Christianity is the largest and fastest growing religion in the world. It always goes back to Jesus' leadership style as a servant leader. So people development, when we get this is one word to define it, is reproduction. Reproduction. People now follow you because of what you have done for them. And this is the greatest thing you can see happen in a person's life, the loyalty that comes when a person realizes, I wouldn't be who I am without you. If you hadn't helped me, because of you, I'm the person I am. Because of you, I have the success that I have. You have helped me become the person that I am. So reproduction, people development, this is so important. I have a lot of loyal people in our organization and in several countries that have been with me for a long time. And they will immediately, whatever I ask them to do, this is not immoral or unethical, and it's in keeping with our organizational goals and vision and mission statement. They don't ask questions. They just do it. They just go. I have that level of influence. See, the lower level of influence you have with people, the more time you have to take explaining, convincing people that what you're doing is right and what you're asking them to do is right, and it's going to be beneficial, and it's going to not be a waste of their time and talent and resources. So people that are with you that have reached this level, these become the top. These are the people you need to be having in your top levels of leadership in your organization. Many times leaders fail and their organization implodes because they put people into positions of authority and they're still basically maybe on a permission level or even a production level. And sometimes when people are at those lower levels of influence, you have less influence with them. When the boat starts rocking, when the company goes through a downturn, through a hard time, or a church goes into decline because it's not really connecting with the culture and understanding how to help people connect with their mission, people start jumping ship. But when I've seen people reach this level of people development, those are the people that I have moved into the highest level of authority in our organization, giving them the greatest responsibility, because they're going to stay with me when things get hard. They're going to dig deeper in their pocket when we all need to contribute more. They're going to give more of their time when and be a team player, a greater team player when another team member drops the ball, even though it's not their job. They jump in there and pick up the ball and keep the team moving down the field. The people that reach this level, you've reproduced yourself in them. The word's reproduction. You have reproduced yourself. You've given them not only your vision but your values and the same character development that's in your life, the keys for success, all of those things. When people can say, and I listen for this all the time, when people say, Pastor John, Dr. John, whatever, Brother John, whatever, John, whatever they call me, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here today. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have this or have that. Then I know that's a person that will have my back. That's a person that will defend me when maybe false accusations are made against our organization or there are dissenters that come into our midst. This happens not only in a Christian organization, it happens in businesses and companies everywhere where people try to usurp authority, undermine leadership. These people that are on this reproduction level that are with you because of what you have done for them, they will take your back. They will take a bullet for you. And those are the kind of people you really want on your highest level of leadership in your team. People and if there are any pastors out there, I'll speak to them as a pastor. People in churches many times are struggling to grow and reach people and develop their organization, and they'll put people in positions of leadership way before they ever reach this level. And I have seen it create problems time and again. And that not only applies to churches, but to any organization where you have to have team ministry in order to accomplish your goal. So reproduction is critical. People development. And I want to encourage your listeners to assess their level of influence with all the people that they're interacting with based upon these these 4 levels that I've given here: position, permission, reproduction, and people development. People follow you because of they have to. People follow you because they want to. People follow you because of what you have done for the organization. And then people follow you because of what you have done for them. And then the last one, John Maxwell has developed, and it's changed my life. I teach these things literally all over the world, wherever I go, is the pinnacle. In fact, John used another word for this when he first came out with his teaching, which was personhood. But he's changed it to pinnacle. It's rare that a leader reaches level 5, or they have that pinnacle level of leadership with an individual. Those people die for you, okay? Not just in combat when we're fighting to keep each other alive, but these are people who will literally lay down their life for you, because, in other words, they'll give you everything they have, the best they have, not just necessarily physically, but they will give you the best of everything they have and withhold nothing because of who you are. And that's the pinnacle level of leadership. And Maxwell says not only is leadership at this level a culmination of leading well on the other 4 levels, but it also requires both a high degree of skill and some amount of natural leadership ability. It takes a lot to be able to develop other leaders so that they can reach level 4. But that's what level 5 leaders can do. And the individuals who reach level 5 lead so well for so long that they create a legacy of leadership in their organization. So you can't get to level 5 with a person until you've walked with them through all the other 4 levels. So you have to be able to recognize that level of leadership and influence you have with that people and help move them to the next level. But when I think of personhood or pinnacle, I'm going to follow a person because of who they are and what they represent. For me as a pastor, I would think of like the great evangelist Billy Graham, who's now gone on to his reward. Billy Graham, with most of us pastors, he would have personhood. Even though I have no personal relationship with him, never worked with him in any way, because of who he is and what he represents. He could come to my town and come to my church and just say to me, Pastor John, I need your church building next week. And I would say, yes, Mr. Graham, what do you need me to do?
Yeah, how can I help you? Yes.
How can I help you?
Anything you want.
Anything you want. That's pinnacle level of leadership. That's personhood. But, a person has to reach that level with every individual. And it's rare to have that with a group, but you can have it with a group of people as well, just like Billy Graham. Many pastors all over would respond just like me. But in an organization where I'm working with people day by day, I have to be able to assess what level of leadership I have, and otherwise I'm not leading, I'm driving people.
Right. And that's exhausting for both of you.
Exactly. So if I can understand that I'm on this level of position with this person, I'm not going to ask them to do more than I should at that point, or as they move up with me through these levels, I can be asking more. I can be creating a greater demand, because obviously a greater demand is going to get greater results. And we all at the top, we all have paid the price to be at the top, where there are no more options. And this is another great teaching from John Maxwell that he uses is a triangle of training, he calls it, and it's broken down into 3 quadrants. If you can picture a triangle, and at the width of the triangle at the bottom, it represents, the width represents your options, and it's in 3 quadrants. In every quadrant, it's separated by a dotted line, an invisible line, and it's about giving up options, and options are given up voluntarily as you make greater commitment within your organization. And as a leader, for me to be a servant leader, I'm the person who's really given up the most options. Like down at the bottom of that triangle, it's the width represents my greatest options. So I retain a lot of options. If I want to come, I will. If I want to give, I will. If I want to participate, I will. When it comes to church, which is my business, I see when people come through our doors, They retain many of their options. I want to come, I want to attend, but I really don't want to make a level of commitment. I don't want to join the church or contribute at this point. I just want to come. So we recognize where they're retaining their options. But the longer they're around, they cross that first invisible line of commitment, and they say, you know what, I'm going to give up some of my options. So that triangle's narrowing as it goes up. I'm going to give up some of my options. That means I'm not going to go from maybe visit different churches every week. I'm going to make this my church. And this is where I'm going to contribute financially. And this is where I'm going to participate in the goals and vision of the church. Voluntarily, I give up some options. But with commitment comes greater fruitfulness, comes greater productivity. Commitment is the name of the game. And that's really what you want to get out of your followers is greater commitment. But you won't do that if you are not a servant leader and if you don't understand the levels of influence and lead people through relationship into greater levels of influence. That last quadrant at the top of the triangle, again, it's narrower as you go up the sides of the triangle. And there you've given up more of your options. See, this is the leadership now. When I'm up in that top quadrant, I've given up most options. If whatever the organization needs from me, I'm willing to give more. For example, if there's going to be special leadership training and I want to participate in that, I'm going to do more than just my regular attend to the regular meetings that all the members attend. I'm going to go to that leadership meeting and commit more of my time to study and prepare and do whatever I have to do to qualify for that leadership position. I made a greater commitment. But at the top of that triangle, there's the pinnacle there. There's no more options. And
Right.
the top leader is the one who has got the greatest results. He's the person or she's the person that will have the greatest impact, make the greatest contributions to the world because they have given up all their options. If nobody else is going to do it, I'm going to do it. If nobody else is going to give, I'm going to give. Whatever it takes for the mission to be accomplished, I've given up all my options. Basically, that's what you call laying down your life. I'm going to do whatever I have to do. So this pinnacle level of leadership, this number 5, is what we could call, the word could be respect. Position is rights. I have the right to lead. I have the position. Permission is relationship. Production is results. People development is reproduction. I have helped this person become who they are. And pinnacle level of influence or leadership, number 5, is respect. I'm following because of respect. And when I have that great level of respect for a person, they do not have to answer my questions. I can question, but they don't have to answer my questions. They don't have to, I don't have to explain myself over and over again. I just have that level of respect. There's a story in the Bible, if I can use it, of King David, one of the greatest leaders of Israel. For 40 years, Israel historically had the greatest level of success, achievement, prosperity, abundance under his leadership. And I study a lot of King David's leadership in the Chronicles in the Bible. But he had three guys. They were at this point in time encamped against the Philistines they were in conflict with. And King David said, boy, would I like to have a drink of water from the wells of Bethlehem. And he remembered his youth, and so he wanted to connect with it. And if I could just get a drink of water from the wells of Bethlehem. And 3 of his top soldiers, the Bible calls them mighty men of valor, they heard King David just say that. He wasn't even asking anybody to go get it. They just heard him say it. And they said to themselves, let's go get the man his drink. So they risked their lives and went into the Philistine camp and got to that well and got him some water and brought it back to him. And he poured it out on the ground. He said, how can I drink this? Because this could have been your blood. It could have cost you your life. He wouldn't drink it. And those men, of course, went through every battle with King David. And that's pinnacle leadership. That's personhood. When people are willing to do that for you. I can tell you a story. I have a man in my life that is, and this is not braggadocious. I don't mean to draw attention to myself, but just use myself as an example of a similar situation. I have a mentor in my life, my top mentor and spiritual father in my life that I respect on this level. He has personhood with me. He's a former combat Marine, so am I. So I understand certain things. Whatever order he gives me, I'm ready to jump. Not just because we are former Marines, but because I respect him that high. And I heard him in one of our meetings with a lot of our associates together. I heard him mention that he would really like to have this really unique car that they don't make them anymore. In fact, the car was in the Superfly movie. For anybody that's old enough to remember that movie, it's a 1972 Cadillac Eldora.
Oh, yes.
Not the Eldorado, but the Eldora. This is a special edition car that they only made a few of. It's like 17 feet long. And it's just an incredible showboat, So I heard him mention, man, one day I'd really like to have that Eldora. And I heard him say it several times. And then one day, this story that I just told you about King David came to my mind. And I thought, how many times am I going to have to hear him express his desire and not do anything about it? And so I started a letter to a lot of his other disciples and proteges, and said, let's give money and let's get this man this car. And I went on a search on the internet, and I found the only one on the whole internet in a warehouse in Pennsylvania. And we bought that car and got it to him. And what that was the greatest joy, was to see the joy and the satisfaction that he received, because somebody cared that much about him, had that much respect for him, that would go to such great length to give him the thing that he desired. He didn't even ask for it. This is personhood. And I think to be the most successful leader and achieve the most result and help other people achieve all that they can achieve, we've got to understand leadership is influence. And my best way to serve people is to identify my level of influence with them, these 5 levels of influence, and through relationship, help move them up to that top level of leadership. And a lot of people that have been with me for years, a lot of them have just plateaued at maybe the 3rd level, reproduction. And they're with me, but I know how much influence I have. And so I don't ask more than I know that I have influence with them in regard to. There's some people that I have number 4 with. They're with me because I discipled them. They're pastoring churches now. They're leading a network of churches, and I taught them how to do it. And they're faithful and loyal in our organization. And then there's a handful that I have Pinnacle with. I go into battle with these people. I have Pinnacle level leadership with, and they're the closest people in my life. So I hope that is helpful to your listeners.
Well, it's certainly helpful to me, and if it's helpful to me, it should be helpful to everyone. I barely interrupted because your profundity and presentation of these principles of how you've interpreted John Maxwell's work. My mind is going in so many different directions. It's like, how do we get the so-called leaders, and I'm not talking political because I don't care about that. I have no influence on that. But either local leaders or business owners or corporate heads, how do you get them to pay attention to these philosophies?
Well, if a person wants to be their best, this is a saying that I believe, that the difference between a success and a failure is a success is willing to do what a failure is not willing to do. They're willing to do the hard things. And so the first step in being a leader is personal development. It's personal development. And the hardest person to lead is going to be me. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest problems that we have in leadership is blind spots. I don't know what I don't know. I don't see the things about myself that other people see about myself. And one of those things may be my leadership style. I may be stuck on this level of position and not really, and be blind to it, that I'm leading from a positional level and losing people out of my organization right and left, and have high turnovers. So the more influence you have, and the further you go up in these 5 levels, the less turnover you're going to have in your organization. So I think for some people, they have to learn or realize that I don't know what I don't know here because I'm failing. I'm losing people. I'm not succeeding. I need to develop personally, first of all. And when a person comes to that realization, then I would definitely recommend that the first thing they do is get John Maxwell's book, Developing the Leader Within You, and then the sequel to his book, Developing the Leaders Around You. And all the leaders in my organization, this is Leadership 101. Everybody goes through these two books. And so I recommend that a person begins to ask themselves the question, where am I lacking in my own leadership? And then begin personal development and get this kind of input.
Well, there has to be a special part of that person to even put their ego aside and think that they are lacking in certain skills and certain methods of dealing with people, because my experience is that leaders blame their followers. They don't take responsibility upon themselves.
This is true.
And that is, it frustrates me and angers me to no end. I mean, I don't know why I get angry. I can't do anything about it. And, it's not my company. But when I see the way this is going on in the world today, it's disturbing. And it looks, it appears as though things are going to fail if people don't change and subscribe more to John Maxwell's philosophies, your approaches to his philosophies, and the taking responsibility, which is what they tend not to do if the company is failing or people are leaving their company or their ministry. My perspective is that we all have ministries. How we present it to the world, whether we are sole proprietors, small business owners, large business owners, housewives, whoever we are, we all have a ministry. We all contribute.
Yes,
and then
absolutely.
We do it in the way that works best for us, but not at the expense of others that we hope to have follow us. So,
exactly.
I really appreciate your thoughts and your approaches to these, and I've taken boatloads of notes, but also it's gotten into my synapses and into all parts of my body when I write. And how would you? Okay, so you would suggest a new leader, a leader who's in doubt, a leader whose people are leaving in whatever manner, whether it's religion or other corporations, that they would get John Maxwell's two books.
Absolutely. Number one, the Developing the Leader Within You, and the sequel, Developing the Leaders Around You, in that order, because I have basically given you John Maxwell through this whole podcast. I know you know that, and I have read the books many times, but that first book, Developing the Leader Within You, he breaks down these 5 levels of leadership. That's what that whole first book is about. And so that's this Leadership 101, absolutely.
And then your book as well, Victorious, How to Face, Fight, and Finish Your Battles, which I'm sure has influenced many of your followers. Yes, ma'am.
It is a biblical book. It's got a lot of biblical references in it, but there are biblical characters that we are to take examples from. And of course, King David, I use his story of slaying Goliath there, because a lot of the other soldiers in Israel were hiding in the trenches. They were fully armed and trained, but they were unwilling to get out and face their problem, which was Goliath. And David was willing to face him and to fight him. And then when he decapitated him, he finished the problem. That problem was never going to come back again. And that's what it means to really finish the battle. Is I've destroyed this problem. I've conquered it.
I'm done.
Solved it, and it's never going to happen again.
Yeah, people. This goes on all the time. I mean, the stories from the Bible and other writings are repetitive. They're repetitive through the centuries, through the days, through the months, through the years, and nothing much changes until they do lop off the head of Goliath. I mean,
there you go.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So if people want to contact Dr. John immediately, his email is drjohn@rfiusa.org. That is his email address, drjohn@rfiusa.org. And John Polis, that's a JOHNPOLIS.com. I thank you so much for being here, and I really appreciate Karen asking you to be a guest on the Sanity Project podcast because I have benefited greatly from what you've said, and I know our listeners are benefiting as well. So
it's been a privilege. Thank you, and very much a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you as well. Okay, have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com and continue the conversation on my podcast page. And get a free copy of my book, The True Self Handbook, a guide to transform your life. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.